Jack, did you know there's a creature out there that absolutely loves to feast on human flesh? That's why we're sheep.
Wait, I'm a sheep.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, I'm a sheep.
You're a sheep.
I thought I was a person.
Yes.
When did this happen?
Well, it happened after we discovered feeding the manticore.
So I'm gonna the manticore's gonna eat me?
No. Manticores feed on people.
Oh, so I'm safe.
So you're safe. You're totally safe.
Well, that's good.
All of you out there in the little white ball, go to patreon.com/feedingthemanticore and discover how you too can be safe.
All you have to do is donate a small fee, and you too can become a sheep. When you donate to our Patreon page, we polymorph you into a sheep so that you can listen to Feeding the Manticore safely as a sheep.
If you want to know about the manticore, listen to Metagamers Anonymous. We'll talk about it. If you want to know how the manticore was created, listen to The Wonderful World of Creation. We talk about it. If you want to know how we polymorphed you into a sheep, listen to Manual of Miscellaneous Magics, because we'll talk about it. Happy listening. All right. So, welcome back to the Knight's Table. I had to think for a moment there because we've got so many podcasts.
It's been a long day.
Yeah. Joster, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. We're all suffering.
So, for those of you who don't know, and we talked about this a little bit in the intro, but we do have several podcasts, and we just recorded one of our podcasts of The Wonderful World of Creation earlier, so that's where my mind was at, so I almost called this The Wonderful World of Creation, and I was like, no, that's
the Wonderful
not right.
World of Tables.
Yeah, it's
The Wonderful World of Nightly Tables.
Yes. Night, we have a table.
Yes.
Huzzah!
Table. I'm Joster. We're going to be talking about
Avatar,
yes, the blue people. But we're going to start with Jack.
Hello, I'm Jack. Pandora. I loved it. I thought the concept was phenomenal. There were a few flaws here and there, but I thought the idea that James Cameron had was just out of this world. Quite literally. There's not much that I didn't like. I took this ever so slight issue with the way that Jake could almost instantly work the Avatar body. He had had no training, no prior experience doing anything like this. You know, he readily admits in the scene right before that he's logged 0 hours, and Norm says that he's logged like 500. And so Norm is like in the room, touch thumbs to the fingers. Oh yeah, I got this, we're good. And Jake is like stumbling around and his tail's like knocking crap over. But as soon as he walks out the door, he's like jogging and like jumping and dodging those giant mech things.
The main issue that I had with that is he was paralyzed.
He had not used his legs in a while.
Yeah, that doesn't just
come back.
I also wonder, I've had the same thought, I also wonder if it was an artistic decision for exactly the reason you're mentioning. We see this guy that's paralyzed, that's very much a part of his initial character that we see. All of a sudden, in the Avatar, he's able to regain something he hasn't had. We see him running and leaping, not out of his amazing ability, but out of joy. I don't wonder if it was an artistic decision to have him have that moment of elation, and that's what opens his eyes so that he has more of a heart for these other people.
If you watch the scene really carefully, he starts out by like wiggling his toes, and as soon as he can see that he can wiggle his toes, he's like, "Oh, dude, my legs work. I'm up." Mm-hmm. And that's what he pretty much just jumps right up off the table. Now he stumbles quite a bit there for a second, he's getting his footing, but he gets it very quickly.
Yeah. One of the other things that you see later on in the movie is that there are certain things that he picks up really quickly and certain things he doesn't.
Right.
Like when he's trying to ride the
horse.
Yeah, the horse. He doesn't pick that up at all when he first hops on the Ikran.
he picks it right up. And he even mentions later in the movie, it's hard for him to differentiate which is his real body and which isn't.
Well, he even mentions, too, what you're talking about. As soon as he gets his Ikran and he starts flying, he says something to the effect of, I was never much for riding horses. He's like, but this I can get on board with. Yeah. You know, that's not the exact phrasing, obviously, but it's right there with that. That's basically what he says, you know. Yeah. He's like, this I can handle, you know.
Okay, so we talked about the things that you didn't particularly care for.
Right.
Now, here's your time. What did you like?
So everything else in Pandora has that extra set of legs, which gives pretty much all those beasts a huge advantage. So how did these humanoid people survive? Well, for one, they're really, really tall. Like, they're large creatures. Yeah. Another thing that I picked up on while watching the movie earlier today was they have a regenerative carbon fiber bone system.
Yes.
The one guy, the bad guy with the scar on the face, mentions that, and he actually points out they are very hard to kill. So that is what gave them the advantage, where they only have 4 limbs and everything else has 6. I thought that was because otherwise they would have been killed out. Because if you can't fly and you don't have the extra set of limbs, you're at a huge disadvantage. But they have that one thing that kind of buffs them up. And then, like, more of what I really liked was just James Cameron's whole idea of this entire world, of what he was trying to do was to accomplish what Tolkien accomplished, was to create a world, create a language, which he did. He created the Navi language. Right. And he created this entire world out of thin air. And then you have humans who, in a lot of alien movies, do what they generally do. They come to random planets and they don't necessarily try to steal the natural resources.
They just infiltrate.
But they infiltrate and they usually muck something up. You know, it's usually humans usually are really dumb and screw something up. Yeah. Or you've got, like, the one guy who's the rich tycoon who all he cares about is money. And he's like, just get these blue monkeys out of my way so I can make my money. But then the scientific aspect of it, you have Sigourney Weaver's character who thinks, you know, hey, maybe we can create these avatar bodies so that we can go in and relate more to the indigenous people and not just, like, go straight military action and kill them all. Right. Let's go in and try to teach them and talk to them and you know, relate to them on a personal level. And I just thought that was a phenomenal way to do it.
One of the other things that I really liked is, she went in and she was teaching them. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the movie, she's just sitting back and she's learning. Because
definitely.
When he actually becomes a part of the tribe, a part of the people, then they open up this whole world of knowledge that she had no idea about.
Right.
And so,
like the tree of souls.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a huge deal. Yeah. And then one of my absolute favorite parts of the movie, and I'm actually planning on creating a D&D campaign kind of based around this, is the Hallelujah Mountains. Those floating mountains. That is so epic. Yep. That is just so cool. And and they have that one little station on one of the mountains where they can kind of go and get away from the, bad guys, so to speak. Yep. So that they can do their own thing. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool concept. But yeah, for concept and for creativity solely, I mean, I give it a 10. I thought it was just a great idea.
I'm Xana, and I like to talk.
I think in general, we enjoy conversing.
Yeah.
Conversating.
This particular world was really interesting to me. I actually was super interested in the fact that, like, they describe the natural world as, like, basically being one giant brain. And that was super cool because, like, all of it's like the roots are like synapses and like each creature has this exposed nerve that Joster doesn't like.
Yeah, no, I'll get to that.
and they're basically able to, it's like each living organism is a different nerve cell of this giant, like, earth brain, and it's just super cool. We were just talking about kind of write what you're comfortable with, or like use what you know in world building and stuff. And in this particular story, like, humans in general, we tend to move in somewhere and try and take over. Basically, that's just a thing that happens a lot. Like, we've run out of resources on this planet, so we're gonna go and pull out resources from other planets, but we have to, like, knock all these native species out of the way to do it. Yeah. So that's mostly what I liked. The only thing I really didn't like was that the main character was kind of a Gary Stu, and I really don't like Gary Stews.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Like, he was made, like, his character is practically perfect at everything he does.
You're talking about Jake?
Yeah.
Okay, alright,
He's
yeah.
Mary Poppins.
He's
Practically
basically
perfect in every way.
Yeah. So, like, when he first gets his avatar body, like, very first, he's, like, off balance, his tail is throwing things all over the room, but it literally takes him maybe a minute to get a hang of it before he books it out of the building and just starts running. Yeah. He is chosen by the
Awa,
yeah.
The deity.
Yeah, so he's chosen, so that makes him even more of a Gary Stu in my mind. And he's also, like, he's pretty much a quick learner. How long did they give him to infiltrate?
3 months.
He had 3 months to infiltrate, and it took him probably about that much time. With the Torak Makto thing, that's another Gary Stu thing that I didn't really like. But, like, at the same time, like, he, like, understood how predators worked, and he knew how to use that to his advantage. Yeah. So in that sense, it's not as much of a Gary Stu thing as it is him just knowing how things work.
Yeah, strategy.
Right.
Yeah. He used military strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
He still jumped on the thing's back and didn't fall off.
That's true.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a Gary Stu impressive moment.
Right.
And he didn't just jump on the thing's back. He, like, free fell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he jumped
And landed
off of his onto the
one.
bigger one, you know.
So, yes, there was strategy, but there was also some Gary Stu-ness.
Yeah. And that's the only thing that really bothered me about it. I really liked the world and the story, and also, like, the aesthetics were really nice. Like, just everything glowing.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
It had amazing CGI.
I am Stan, and I'm a writer. It's been a while since I've only seen Avatar once all the way through. It's been a while since I saw it. When I did see it, I really, really liked it. From a writer standpoint, I think it was really well done. The overall concept, brilliant. But yeah, so I definitely have an appreciation for how much work James Cameron went through to create this world. The aesthetics of the cinematics were brilliant. Because, I mean, Xana talked about everything being like one giant brain, and yeah, everything, not just the nerve-ending pulses and whatnot of the world, but everything worked together cohesively. Yeah. We don't even get that on Earth. I mean, maybe in the natural world, but you throw humans into the mix and everything gets thrown out of whack.
Well, just as in the movie, when humans got thrown into the mix, everything got screwed up.
And that is one critique that I have is kind of get away from the reality that humans suck.
The other side of that, though.
Sorry.
Are you laughing at the phrasing or the way I said it?
Both! That was just a funny way to put that, but it's true.
So, The interesting thing with that, though, is that not all humans suck. Humanity in general is good.
Right.
Humanity in general doesn't want to use up resources. But the people that could afford to go here, or could be paid to go here, like military people and all that, those are the ones where they're either taking orders from someone who sucks, or they're the one who's giving orders
And
who
they suck.
sucks.
Yeah.
So,
To quote a favorite musical of ours, there are two kinds of men and only two. There's the one with his, there's the one staying put in his proper place, and the one with his foot in the other one's face.
yes.
Well, because you had humans like Jake and Grace
Yep.
and
And
Norm,
I almost called him Tom.
who were very kind and wanted to help these people, and then you had, Scarface and Rich Boy, who...
But even Jake at first was not.
Yeah, he was
On
kind
that
of playing...
side, yeah.
Kind of
He was-
neutral, he was playing both sides.
He was kind of playing devil's advocate at first because
Right.
he was following orders.
Right.
He was like a good jarhead of the
Indeed.
Jarhead clan.
That was awesome. I loved that part of the movie.
And then the first time I watched it, I wasn't familiar with Marine terminology, so I didn't catch that jarhead was
Marine.
Marine jargon for Marine.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as his character was concerned, he played his part very well. He was very tactful in the way he approached it, but again, we established that was really good Marine strategy or military strategy. And even though I don't think they went into his military backstory, he probably had good experience of dealing with the enemy.
Yeah.
It goes without saying, because he was able to win their favor pretty quick.
There's also the fact that he was chosen by their deity. So.
Yeah, getting to that. Because on that note, I side with Xana. As a writer myself, I despise absolutes. I cannot stand an absolute villain. If you wonder what an absolute villain is, look at Voldemort.
Yep.
Someone who is evil for evil's sake. There's no tormented backstory. There's no reason why.
Yep.
They're just the bad guy that you have to kill
Right.
for the sake of the story's plot. And then you have your absolute hero. In this case, Jake Sully, to use the extended metaphor, Harry Potter.
Right.
He was the chosen one. He was kind of sorry as a wizard in the first 3 books. And then all of a sudden he becomes this epic duelist and all this kind of stuff. He's really good with defensive spells, blah, 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 blah. And everyone looks to him to teach them.
Yeah.
At the age of 17.
And little did they know,
And young.
in the same room there was Hermione,
Yeah.
who could have taught everybody so much more than he could.
Yes!
Well, Hermione wasn't as good with people as Harry was, though.
She wasn't as good with people, but, I mean, in the books, Harry wasn't real good with people either.
Yeah.
They just looked at him as...
Right.
You're
It was
right.
more like Katniss Everdeen
Yeah.
as the face of the
Yes.
rebellion. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it
So-
was.
Harry was the
but
face
that's-
of... Yeah.
I mean, even in Katniss Everdeen's case, she was an absolute hero.
She was.
She was. Yes, she definitely had a tormented past.
Right.
Yeah.
Or character development. Absolute torture. That made her who she was. And I like that. She became an absolute hero. She didn't start as one.
Right.
That's true, yeah.
So, I'm okay with that. I loved the Hunger Games series. My books, right now, my main character, I'm trying to keep him away from being an absolute hero. He has to develop into what he's going to be, and even when he gets there, he's not going to be an absolute hero because there are other characters who can do just as good or better at something else.
Yeah.
My villains are not absolute. My main villain of my first book has, a history that I'm in the process of building. A reason why he does what he does. Not just doing it for the sake of doing it. In Avatar, you have Colonel Scarface, because none of us can think of his name.
Colonel Scarface
None of
works.
us really want to think of his name. either.
Yeah.
He's kind of a dick.
Yeah. I mean, him and the rich scientist dude who was kind of funneling
He
all
wasn't
the
a
money.
scientist. He was just
He was the tycoon.
the tycoon.
He was the one, what was it called? Unobtainium?
Yep.
So Colonel was his bucket and the rich tycoon guy who couldn't care less if anyone left the place alive because he just wanted the money, the Colonel wanted the glory,
Yeah.
and he wanted people out of his way.
Right.
Sort of a definition of an absolute villain. He was mean and ornery from the get-go.
And nothing could change his mind. That's
Yes.
what an absolute villain is when you can throw everything at them that logically they should change their mind,
But they don't.
but they don't.
They want to win for the
Because
sake of winning.
not only is their character absolute, they psychologically are absolute. And as we know, only Siths deal in absolutes.
And even them, not entirely. Like, Anakin had somewhat of a tortured background.
Yes.
In my opinion, Darth Vader was not an absolute hero.
Honestly, out of the entire movie,
villain, yeah.
I loved the movie. The whole concept was great. The only thing that really bothered me was how they developed the characters.
Yeah.
Because...
It was too fast.
Yeah. I mean, okay, yeah, Jake, ex-Marine, paralyzed, go.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, yeah, the Gary Stu thing. Absolute hero again. He masters his avatar. He's chosen by the deity. He worms his way into the culture perfectly. Well, semi-perfectly. He kind of butts heads with the one guy, almost literally. I mean, yeah, he kind of gets his butt kicked by the local fauna, but... But other than that, he just kind of seamlessly flows into the character that he's supposed to be, and everyone looks to him like, yay, lead us on to victory.
Yeah.
You know, free fall onto this giant orange flying monster thing and become the president. I don't know. It's
Become the president. He don't
yeah, it just
Vote for Jake. Vote for Jake.
flow. The flow of the movie itself was great. The flow of the characters, I personally would have written better.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'm Jace.
Not Jake.
Not Jake, Jace.
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 Yeah, and you're our special guest. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
As far as I know. Yes. So, I liked the movie. I did have a problem with the villains, and I would agree with the character development too. I guess you could say I wanted more from that, kind of more background. The biggest thing I didn't like about it was the villains, mostly because it is like stereotypical villain. It is, yeah, it's
something that happens commonly.
Mm-hmm.
Is like
it's for the sake of the story.
Yeah, having this military group headed up by this super rich guy, and they just have this task to do, and they just bulldoze through it. In this movie, they literally bulldozed through stuff.
Yeah.
And blew it up.
And so it was very stereotypical in a movie that was not stereotypical.
I'm hoping in the second one we'll get a little bit better villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I liked a lot of this, like basically everything else about it, like the world that was talked about Pandora, and all of the pulsating beauty that's in it.
Yep.
The animals were unique. They can't say I've seen anything like it before.
Yeah, on no other world will you find a viper wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like that term you used too, pulsating beauty.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great way to put that.
You knew you had it in you.
I think what I like the most is the big flying monster thing.
Yeah.
Because like
Turok.
yeah, the
Turok,
Turok. That I thought those things were called Turoks, like the whole flying monster things, the common ones.
The
The
big
big
orange one was the
I was like,
Turok.
those are Turoks, right? But I wasn't sure. So like,
Because
okay.
he became Torok Makto, which was like, what did that mean?
Rider of Last Shadow.
Yeah. Okay. So
Turok is Last Shadow.
Yeah, the big orange thing.
Yeah, they named them Turok for Last Shadow, and then Turok Makto is Rider of Last Shadow.
sweet, figured that out.
All right, I'm Aki. I really enjoyed this movie. There are many reasons that a lot of people have named. I looked at it from maybe because of my dramatic background. I don't know, but I looked at it from more of an artistic perspective because to me it very obviously was a tale that's been told before. As far as this, I don't want to say new age, but that idea of
A tale as old as time.
it is a tale as old as time. Yeah. But this whole idea of needing to be conservative and not ruining our planet, and that whole vibe, environmentalist kind of a vibe to a movie, but done in such a unique way that I really enjoyed it. It didn't seem like the same old, and because of so much creativity being put into it, I wonder if its message didn't reach a broader audience, and like maybe hopefully really did open some people's eyes. And so because of that, it makes me think of things like maybe, even though I would totally agree about the character development with the villain and stuff, I don't wonder if that was very intentional to have these very stereotypical villains, this rich guy and this military guy, because he's making a political statement that in our society, people with these type of mindsets are villainous, are the ones that are destroying our planet.
Right.
And so I don't wonder if that was intentional for those to be stereotypes, so that you can say, these are the people I don't want you to be like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Along those lines, I still agree that it would have been nice to know what made him so rugged that way. My question along those lines is, we know that James Cameron came up with a story for this movie. I can't help but wonder, and I've wondered this before, what an awesome book this would have made. And if we had had a book, we could have seen some of that.
Or
because
a series.
Or a series.
Yes.
Well, and I even had that written down. Like, when he originally was making this movie, he was not thinking of a second and a third. He was intending it to be kind of a standalone. And so he couldn't take the extra time to develop characters because he only had three. I think it ended up being closer to 3.
Yeah.
But he still only had that many hours to develop it. Whereas if he had known all along that this story was going to be over several movies, we could have seen some of that character progression. But he was trying to fit it in a narrow line. That being said, it's still stuff I didn't like. But
going off of that, you compare this story to Lord of the Rings, because in Lord of the Rings they didn't go over the details of the world, because it went over it in the books, and the die-hard Lord of the Rings fans already knew all those details. They didn't have to explain that halflings only live this long and this is where they live. Halflings, are very sneaky. You already knew that. You didn't have to know the history behind orcs. You already knew that. And if you didn't, you still enjoyed the movie.
mm-hmm.
And so when you're creating a new concept and putting it straight to film, that's one of the things that you run into. There are no diehards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No one knew the background
Right.
of any of this.
Except for James Cameron. And who knows, he may have very detailed backgrounds for these guys in his mind when he was creating the characters. He just didn't have time to show it to us.
Right.
Which makes me... He could have kind of Galadriel'd his way through it. In the Fellowship of the Ring, you get that little overture, the Galadriel voiceover, giving you a very brief history of Middle Earth.
Right.
Indeed.
That would have taken too long.
Some other things I thought of as y'all were making your comments, because you've really all talked about the stuff that I really like and the few things that I would agree with I dislike. So I really kind of saved all my comments to respond to some of the stuff you said, because it really got me thinking as you were mentioning these things. It made me think about it even more. You were mentioning the nerve center brain aspect of it. I love that they use that, because I think it was a very intentional way of, we need to realize that even here on Earth, where we're not all able to plug into the planet, that we're all still very much a part of the planet.
Yeah.
And that we are all part of this one organism that is our world. This was just an excellent way to picture that in a different world where everything is literally connected, so that maybe people can realize, they're literally connected, but really we're connected to our planet too, because of this happens, it affects us this way and this way and this way.
Sure.
And so I really like that aspect of it. In addition to how the coolness factor, also the way that it brought that point across in a way that we have not seen before. We've heard people try to make that point before, but not in such a dramatic and almost poignant way. You can't get any more a part of it than that. I also, in response to the whole deity thing, and I've thought of this before, because, I don't know James Cameron's personal belief system or anything like that, but it doesn't strike me as a diehard believer in an ultimate deity like we are. So I don't wonder if that was also another artistic license on his part, so that the deity was really this world brain, right? That was their deity, was this whole world. Well, we know that when we do things to affect our planet tries to compensate to survive.
Right.
So this deity, the planet, sees what's happening to itself. It needs to compensate to survive. So yes, Jake is chosen, but what was everybody else doing? Running away from the problem. Who was the one that was willing to do something? Jake. So why was Jake chosen? Because he was the only one available to be chosen. Nobody else wanted the job. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, as much of a Gary Stu moment it may be, I also think there is some reasoning behind it. Yeah, because I can't pick this guy. He's been running away the whole time. He just wants to avoid confrontation. Yeah. I can't pick him.
Conversely, I mean, it may not have been touched on in the movie, but it happens regardless. You have people that are running away from the issue, and then you have people who want the job who will only make it worse.
Right. So when you look at it in that light, as cheesy as it is that the heroes are chosen, it also makes sense that he's a chosen. He's the only one that's willing. He's the only one willing to try to jump on Turok's back.
Yeah.
Nobody else is that stupid. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
And that actually brings up a really interesting point and a really interesting aspect of this, because the only reason that Jake's there is because his brother died.
Right.
Now, as terrible a concept as this is, that suggests an even higher connectivity, not just in this world, but with this world connected to the entire universe, in the sense that they arranged this so that Jake would be in this spot.
To do this
task. To happen.
Right. The only other thing I really wanted to mention that nobody's mentioned yet, one of my favorite characters, and I know it's a small part character, but I love the helicopter pilot chick.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name, but that totally goes native to the point that, like in that last scene, her helicopter has like the feathers and stuff hanging off of it,
she's
tribal looking.
Out.
Her name is Trudy.
Trudy. Yeah, I love that character because that's another character that makes that same kind of a change as Jake, but she makes it without an avatar.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what? She makes it solely as a human.
She's willing to sacrifice herself as a human for the Navi.
And she did, if I remember correctly.
She does. Yeah, she dies.
She dies.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was going to mention that I completely forgot about till now was also like, this isn't the only story. This is like the adult movie version of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Like Atlantis is the same story but for kids.
Yeah.
And like you just reminded me of that because Trudy in my head was my correlation to Audrey.
Yeah.
So.
And the story's been done a lot of times before. In my childhood, which is before yours, Matt, you may remember, there's that movie Fern Gully.
Oh, yeah.
That was very much that same kind of a story.
This was totally adult Fern Gully.
From a fairy kind of a standpoint.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the same thing's been done before, but this is a completely different way of doing it.
Well, James Cameron just took his spin on it and threw it out there and said, "Here, see, let's see what you guys think."
There's no giant mucky spirit monster.
No, there's not.
Voiced by Tim Curry.
Yes.
Like I said, I'm Joster. I'm gonna put in just a few points because I agree with pretty much all that's been said. Like one of the things that I really loved about this was the way that my mind works. Is I look at things from like a scientific, I'm not a scientist, but I like examining things from a scientific standpoint.
Logic.
Yeah, a logical standpoint. Yeah. But I really was fascinated by the fact that, because Jake goes to Awa and tells her, basically, that there's this massive threat that could potentially endanger the planet, that could potentially endanger, the mother tree and all that. And one of the Natiri comes up to him and says, "Awa doesn't get involved in this stuff," but she did. And I thought it was really interesting because one of the things that's been repeated over and over again is the planet is basically a giant brain. Well, what happens when a brain perceives a threat? What happens when a body perceives a threat? Yeah, it reacts. And a planet can't flee. So it has only one option. In the flight or fight scenario, fight is it.
Yeah.
And so the animals then became essentially, the white blood cells.
Yeah.
Antibodies.
Fight off this virus that is coming in and infecting. And what's really interesting is that the planet is able to differentiate between friend and foe. Mm-hmm. Because as the wolf viper, as you put it, Viper wolf, comes up, it actually offers itself to Nadiri
Mm-hmm.
to be her mount because her mount died.
Right.
I mean,
They don't do that.
Yeah, no, they don't do that. They kill things. That's what they do professionally. They're assassins.
So that's the first animal that Jake encounters in the entire movie. That's when you see these critters ain't good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're not
No,
nice.
they're not.
They want to eat you.
And even in the beginning of the movie, they mention everything on this planet is trying to kill you.
Yeah, Scarface says the one who says that.
Now, what's really interesting is the way that the brain works. Brain doesn't like foreign objects in it.
No.
It relentlessly attacks them to the point that if you get a foreign object in your brain will swell up trying to repel that object to the
And you
point
die.
where it kills you.
Yeah.
So the brain is willing to sacrifice itself in order to repel a foreign object. So, is everything on the planet actually trying to kill everything else? No. They're just trying to kill the
Invaders.
invasion.
Yeah.
What doesn't belong.
Exactly. Because when you're seeing Jake go through this whole process of becoming one of the people, you see him interacting with all of these creatures. And yes, they're aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Creating neural impulses in a brain is literally generating an electrical pulse. That's usually not good. But in the brain it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's a violent process to create a refined brain.
It's controlled chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the main aspect that I really enjoyed about this. There was a lot more development, there was a lot more backstory that could have been told,
Agreed.
but the overall concept was absolutely awesome. We're gonna go briefly through execution. How did you like the execution? A couple minutes per person, and then we'll go over just an overall rating of this idea.
Okay, so as far as execution goes, I personally thought it was executed well. I thought James Cameron did a really good job of taking his idea and putting it into process. I do agree that I really wish he would have written a book first. I really agree with that was said, because if he had written a book first, oh my gosh, the movie would have just been
Epic.
that much, because like you said, Joster, you would have had a fan base, and then that fan base would have done all the research.
And what's really interesting is, like, when you go to a movie, you have people in line that are talking about it.
Yes.
So you have the historians there while you're waiting to get into the movie.
Right.
And they're usually dressed in costume.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially on opening night.
Yeah.
Indeed. So I think if he could have put it to page and then put it to film, how much better it could have been. But given what we have, I thought it was executed well. I thought the filming, the way they filmed the movie was just super great. The CGI was phenomenal. The different colors, the way that they just depicted everything was absolutely beautiful. It was a beautifully filmed movie. I give the execution at least an 8.
I just really liked, I mean, as far as the movie goes, like, just in general, I just really liked it. It was, I mean,
It's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to
It
watch.
is fun to watch.
It's cool. It's cool to watch, especially with all the glowy things that I mentioned earlier. I love the glowy things.
Glow cloud.
Yeah. And let's just say the CGI was like 100 times better than the CGI for Ghost Rider. Like, it's basically like if
There is no comparison.
right. It was just really good. I don't really know how I would rate it because I'm not very good at rating things. Like, I have no sense of scale at
That's
all.
okay.
On
So-
a scale of 1 to 32, it was between like 5 and 30.
Yeah.
I haven't seen very many movies with a CGI done the way that they did it.
I think the only other movie that I have seen that had that level, or even similar to that level of CGI, would be Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
that has that much. Even
Right.
Star Wars didn't have that much CGI. At least that much noticeable CGI.
Lord of the Rings didn't have an extreme amount of CGI. It was
Oh,
No, it's filmed on site.
It was most. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
mostly
that was
actors.
pure landscape
Yeah.
And like
and bungee
mind
cords.
tricks.
Yes.
Yeah, they just use a lot of camera tricks.
They were
And
really
they
good at that.
executed it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another podcast. I think overall the film was executed very well. The CGI was amazing. And like Joster said, the contrasts, that's why this movie took so long to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the sequel has been in production since how many years now?
Couple?
I don't know.
A
I
few-
just
yeah.
know there's like 4 sequel, like 4
5.
Yes.
Four
yeah,
more.
it will be
4
a
more,
series
yes.
probably going until like 2030.
Yeah.
James Cameron may or may not still be alive when they finish the last one.
He's not that old.
I know, but
You never know.
but on the lighting idea, the lighting and the CGI and everything and the contrast, lighting can make or break a movie.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to my comparison of Harry Potter. The first 2 films were brilliantly lit.
Yes.
They still had a dark storyline.
Yeah.
But Christopher Columbus, or Chris Columbus, not Christopher Columbus.
Different,
Columbus.
different guy.
Yeah.
Made
Wait, the guy who
mistakes
discovered
and-
the United States?
He was a wizard. Just. But anyway, so Chris Columbus directed the first 2, and then he went on to be the producer of the third.
Yeah.
The director has a little bit more say-so in what the movie looks like.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the first 2 Harry Potter movies looked like you would expect them to look from
Yeah.
reading the books. From the third movie on, it was just dark.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a dark storyline already. You don't need to make it feel dark.
And the thing is not it doesn't just feel dark. Like those movies are hard to watch.
Yes. Yes.
Bad things happen in those movies. Like, dark things happen.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have to make the movie itself
Yeah.
look like the storyline.
Yeah, the actual volume of light in those movies
Yes.
was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I know, it's England. We know it's dank and rainy and miserable. Don't make us feel like that while we're watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
But Avatar. So much contrast. It balanced really well. Even the animals.
Yes.
Like, I mean, the viper wolves. They almost had an iridescence to them, and yet they were black.
Right. The
Um,
big Triceratops things.
Yeah,
They had the fins on their heads.
yeah.
Those were like peacock feathers almost.
Yeah. The amount of color in this movie, in any other kind of movie, would have been way too much. But they executed it brilliantly.
Yes.
And despite our critiques, the storyline flowed really well. The story was executed well, in spite of our little nitpicky authorian details.
Well, we're nerds.
We are. We're not just nerds. We're uber nerds.
That's right.
So, I mean,
Jack's an Uber nerd.
For those of you who don't know, Jack actually does drive for Uber. So
I'm an Uber nerd.
Rich
I
man's
love it.
taxi service.
alright.
Jace here again. Before
He
I
never left. He's still here.
Yeah.
What you think?
You'll
Um,
never really know.
exactly.
Only we will.
So, before I get into what I really want to talk about, I want to say that if you show me a dark movie, I'm probably going to fall asleep. I think it was executed very well. Even the parts I didn't like, I still feel like they were executed well because they nailed it, which is probably why I didn't like it. Because it was obviously an absolute villain and all of that fun stuff. They nailed that, which made it obvious that's what they were.
Yeah, so even the parts that we didn't really particularly care for, they executed those parts very well.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I liked the color contrast. The whole planet was just
Trying to kill
amazing.
them.
Yeah, and I like that too. Like they executed that well too.
Yeah, exactly.
At least I'm trying, but yeah, it was executed very well. I give it a 9.5 10.
I agree that the movie was executed very well. I want to jump into another way it was executed well because I had the opportunity earlier this year to go to Disney World. where they have added a Pandora section to the Animal Kingdom Park,
Yep.
which is also executed extremely well.
They even have the
They're
floating mountains.
really
They have the
capitalizing.
floating mountains that you love.
What?
Like, they legit look like they're floating. I mean, it would amaze me to see. I mean, you're walking on it at night. If you're there at night, all of the flora and fauna is definitely glowing. I mean, different colors and
Stop
everything.
fangirling, Jack.
They have a couple. They have a restaurant there. They have a couple of rides there. One of them is this Navi River Journey ride, where you get to go through the journey. They have one of the most amazing, or two of the most amazing animatronics I've ever seen that are Navi people that are telling stories and stuff. And I mean, it's incredible. And it's a darker in there, so you get to see a lot of that flora and fauna. As you're walking through the land, you'll hear like animals moving through beside you and the things. And they do it so well because you'll hear the animal rustling in the leaves, like go this way, but they've actually got air jets to make the leaves move as this animal is passing. I'm assuming it's air jets. It's something, but like you hear it, you hear something breathing, and then you hear it start to move. You look over there, and everything's moving, and you're like, "Holy moly, what is that?" I mean, it's just really good. And then of course,
I want to go.
then of course, the ultimate experience is you get to go, and become a part of the Avatar experience yourself. Because you go on this ride, you put on these 3D glasses, and you sit on this thing. It looks like a motorcycle, and they tell you what you're doing is they're putting you into the body of your avatar.
No.
And then they turn the screen, and you are on the back of a Banshee, and you are flying
That's sick.
through
the motorcycle
Pandora.
thing is so you're positioned like they would
So
ride them.
yes,
Yeah.
but as you're going, like, and you're fully immersed in this virtual reality experience,
Yes.
it's moving in and out as if it's breathing. And you can hear, I mean, it makes you literally feel like you are on the back
So
of a
is it-
living creature.
Is it 3D glasses or is it VR?
It's a big screen that everybody's watching, and then you're putting on like 3D glasses so that you experience the picture on
Gotcha.
there in 3 dimensions.
Gotcha.
So it's not like an individual VR headset.
Yeah.
It's the big screen thing, like a lot of rides today are.
With
but
like the
it's
blue
best
and
one.
red.
But
But it's the best thing.
Those things, I've been on one of those. They're absolutely amazing, and you feel immersed in it.
Yeah,
Because
like if you've
they're-
done soaring at Disney World, it's
Yeah.
like that, but like 5 steps
Yeah.
up. I mean, it's
Because with-
absolutely incredible.
With those kinds of rides, I've been on a couple, and they're not the red and blue glasses because those glasses suck.
No, it's the legit.
They have kind of a wavy
Yeah.
Yeah.
texture to them, because it actually distorts the image you're seeing and brings it to you.
Mhm.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool. And then the other cool thing about that, and you can see YouTube videos of the ride, but it's not the full experience,
Oh, yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
and you're not probably going to be able to see it in the real 3D.
You
I
can't
don't know.
put 3D glasses
Right.
over
a phone screen. But the cool thing about it, if you do watch the movies, is in those videos you get to see some new animals of Pandora that we have not seen before. Like when you're on the ride, like there's some sea
It like might
creatures.
show up in like.
I'm
two.
assuming they will because they're too awesome not to. But you get to see a couple of really cool sea creatures when you go over a massive body of water. At one point, they're jumping out and trying to eat some of the other things that are flying. I mean, it's
I have to go to Disney
so
World now.
anyway. I wanted to add that aspect to the execution part of it because that was extremely well, and I think part of the delay in this release of the other movies, in addition to some other things, is I think they were waiting for that land to open because now the new movies will build off the popularity of that land
Yeah.
and the popularity of that area
Yeah.
will also build off of the movies, and it'll be all
Yep.
because it's been so successful. They've already announced a couple of expansions, even beyond where they are now. A new ride. They haven't said what it is, but they're going to do a new ride in another restaurant and stuff. So
That's so cool.
That is awesome.
anyway, also executed very well, and you'll get to see the things that you all mentioned that you love so much: the mountains and the pulsating beauty and all that stuff.
I'm
is all
really
there, too.
glad you brought that up. That's awesome.
Okay, cool.
Disney did not pay us to say this, by the way.
No, Disney did not.
But if they want to,
Yes.
Well, if you're listening,
If some Disney executive listens to our little family podcast here,
free tickets would be appreciated.
Yes.
that's right. We'll give it a review afterwards if you send us all there.
All we really want is for Disney to listen, to appreciate what we do, to give us a call and say, hey, We loved your podcast. Thanks for promoting us. Here's free tickets to Disney World and $5 million. That's all. That's all we ask.
We don't need the
Yes.
$5 million, just free tickets to Disney
Right.
for the rest of our lives.
We're not that demanding. We're not asking for a lot here.
Yeah, $5 million.
Chump change.
To Disney.
Not, yeah, it's $5 million to Disney is it's not $100 million.
It's not.
That's right. No,
So,
it's not.
yeah.
It's not the price of a park.
It's not even the price of the expansion of the park.
It's not even the cost of a ride.
I thought that the movie was amazingly executed because even though I didn't particularly care for the storyline, I loved watching the movie over and over and over again. I even bought the video game at one point, and I played that over and over and over again, even though it was basically terrible. And I hate video games that streamline you. That
Yes.
you must go from this point to this point to this point. You have to kill these exact same enemies every time. I hate video games like that. But I played through that video game 5 times because it was so aesthetically amazing.
I had it at one point and I sold it because I just couldn't stand the controls.
Yeah. It had lots of issues, but it was so much fun to play because you're just immersed in this wonderful, colorful world.
The wonderful world of
So,
Disney.
yeah. I think that it was executed exceptionally well. Because of the length of the podcast, currently we're going to go ahead and close out for the night with a real quick rating of concept, execution, and reception. Concept for me was, I would give it a 9 because there were some minor holes, but fairly high. Execution, I'd give it a 9. And reception by the public, I think at least an 8.
I concur with those ratings. I mean, I said execution was at least an 8, but I think it was better than that. And then the reception by the public, obviously, was an 8 or a 9 because that movie made billions of dollars.
And still is.
And people are still into that. And now that Disney's done its own little world, it's continually making money.
Yeah.
So the reception was phenomenal. The execution, I think, was a 9 as well, and the concept was a 9. I mean, it's 9s across the board for me.
Probably more like an 8 for the concept.
Mm-hmm.
For the execution, like a 9.5.
Yeah.
And for reception, I want to say like a 9.5.
Cool.
On concept, I give it a solid 9. Same with Joshua, there were some holes that could have been filled. Execution, I actually give it a 7 because of all the storyline critiques, the character stuff that I talked about earlier. Reception by the public, a 9.
9.5, 10, 9, stuff like that.
All right. So
I love your
just
ratings, Chase.
Thanks, Chase.
Average it out. 9, 9.5, 9.
9. Yes.
yes. 9, yes.
All right.
I'll go 9 on the concept, absolutely. I would agree with what Stan said about the execution of the movie itself, but factoring in the execution of the world at Disney World, I would jump that up to probably a 10 because that you get to actually be in Pandora. I mean, and that's just, you can't execute better than that. So
Not in the box, just in Pandora.
yeah, well, you want to stay in the box if you're in Pandora's boxes. We don't want that opened up. And then as far as reception, I'd have to go 8.5 or 9 just because I remember when it did win the big awards at the Oscars and all, how much of an outcry there was. You know, people were so upset that it didn't win because they thought it should have.
Yeah.
So that proved that the public really loved it. And then the fact that one of the days we were in Disney, we had fast passes. We didn't have to do that. One of the days we were in Disney, the line to get on that Banshee ride was like a 5-hour wait.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're waiting 5 hours for any ride at any theme park, it must be something that was received pretty well, you know. So
So we're gonna go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
We will be back next week.
Thanks for joining us at the Knight's Table.